Tom Brady is once again a Buc, but it's quite likely that this will be his final season. Everyone thought it was over for the quarterback, but seeing as he's already almost retired once, it feels like we have to say goodbye sooner rather than later. So what's the plan for when the Bucs don't have Brady anymore? Let's talk about it. First things first, a future quarterback plan to keep Buccaneers in contention. Tom Brady's eventual retirement is imminent, and while sports fans are overly aware of this, no one knows what the Bucs' plan is. Once he's gone, they'll have to adjust, and making plans ahead in the game is the most sensible course of action. The only issue is that at this stage, there are no options for draft picks that could fill Brady's shoes. The Bucs are going to have to settle. There's also the financial aspect that means the Bucs need a plan for a solid future. The Glazers, the family that owns them, are in serious debt. To offset that particular issue, they'll have to step up. This would be possible if they took chances on newer players such as Anthony Richardson, who just declared for the draft, or players who can fit in well with their team such as Jacoby Brissett. There are also guys like Jared Goff, who have experience levels of 12 years or so, and Baker Mayfield is around the same age. Of these, Brissett is the most reliable option, and while he's not a good long-term player, he's still a strike better than current Bucs quarterback Blaine Gabbert. He could keep the team going steady. But in the end, the best option for the Bucs has to be picking new, fresh players. And Anthony Richardson, a college player who's loved by scouts with better skills than some veterans, will be available when they're picking. What's it going to be, Tampa? Next, the differences Brady made with the Patriots versus the Bucs. When Brady originally switched to the Bucs, fans were worried that the first season with a new team would ruin his perfect record with the Pats. That wasn't the case, and his first year with the Bucs just made his career all the more historic. People used to say he was a result of the Pats, but by now, his obvious work ethic and strategic planning skills more than speak for themselves. There are differences in his play with the two teams, even if some of them are obviously due to age or experience or just playing with different people. But comparing the Bucs before they were joined by Brady with the Patriots as they are now, it's clear who makes the games. Every Bucs player can tell you Brady gives advice like a second coach and is the main strategist at this point. During the games, he'll predict plays that happen moments later and would have been unpreventable without his insight. The Patriots, without him, seem to be the worst they've ever been. Their recent heavy loss against the Bears speaks for itself. Coming up, why has the NFL legend struggled against Dennis Allen's defense? The New Orleans Saints are probably the only team Brady seriously struggles against these days. That was made clear after the recent Saints vs. Bucs match in which Brady was visibly frustrated and won only barely. And this wasn't an issue in previous years when part of the Patriots, as he went against them 4-1, and this ratio is now flipped. The real reason for the change is the coach's new strategy of keeping Brady under constant heavy pressure. The offensive line isn't able to keep them off him as they're shadowed securely. It's as if they have a solid plan for going up against Tampa, Tom, and it almost worked this time. Their player Lattimore shadowed Mike Evans for 3/4 of the game in 2021, and a mirror of that event happened in the recent game. Evans is pretty frustrated, and that put the entire Bucs offense off. Seeing as Evans is Brady's most relied on, once he's essentially out of the game, the Saints can focus on Brady. The only reason this didn't work was Brady's ability to read defenses as quickly as he could, and possibly the experience of having lost before and not wanting to go through that humiliation again. Desperation is a good motivator. Now for a quick game recap. The recent Bucs vs. Saints was definitely one for the books, not just because of its end-time turnaround, but also its edge-of-seat score differences. The Bucs won by a single point with only 3 seconds left to spare. Saints fans tossed their hats on the ground and wonder, how did Brady even do it? They almost had that match. Here's a recap of the game, some highlights, and Brady's thoughts post-match. Next, Brady set a record win against the Saints. Brady led the defeat with barely 3 seconds remaining. The Bucs beat their opponents 17-16. The score was 16-3, and they practically threw themselves into the end of the game. Brady was able to save it, but initially it really wasn't going so well. His frustration during the game itself was clear, sitting on the sidelines and shouting expletives at his teammates. But he brought it back in a way he's only done once before in a previous match against the Falcons with another 13-point score difference. Brady ended the match with 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception on 36 of 54 passing. At this point, he really is the system. Not to mention his frustration during the match. It was hard to ignore when the camera turned to Brady on the bench, and even if you can't read lips, you can tell he wasn't exactly happy. holding a tablet. His grip is tight, and he shouts at his teammates so loud you can almost hear him. He had a lot to be angry about, considering his team had more than 50 plays shut down by the Saints, and by that rate, they'd had more plays shut down than their opponents had even attempted. Having Tom Brady as your teammate shouting on a bench is probably as stressful as it gets for kids when their dad is watching his game. We are as worried about that tablet as your mother's worried about her coffee table. He wasn't even yelling at anyone in particular, but it was entirely too stressful to watch the way he looked up from the device. It's the same energy, the same red face, and the same kind of language being used. Guess it comes with being a father.
Who's making plays? I think, who's yelling at somebody? Oh, there we go.
Next, Brady talks about his team's win after the match. Brady, after a match, is always a hilarious moment. By this point, he's always cooled off and looks a bit embarrassed when faced with things he did during the game. According to him, he gets too overly emotional, but so did everyone else watching the game, so who can blame him? So why did he toss a tablet? Apparently, he'd forgotten the password, that's all. That was in 2021 after another game with the Saints, and he joked on a podcast that he always has some kind of problem with that particular tablet and always ends up taking his rage out on it. Poor, meaningless object. This match was no different, and he straightened his jacket, adjusted the mic, and said the match went just like we drew it up, as if he hadn't saved it in the fourth quarter. Brady looked relieved, mostly, and his smile was tired when the whole room of reporters laughed at his first and immediate sarcastic comment. The quarterback wasn't exactly wrong, though, because it's true that if there's enough time left in a quarter, he can count on previously made plans to come through with enough winning points to turn the score over. It's his experience that comes in handy in times like this.
This is the letter I've been telling you about.
This letter is for you.
Last but not least, will Tom Brady still be playing in 2023? This time last year, it was practically a fact that Brady was done with the NFL, but that might not be the case anymore. Reportedly, he's been throwing himself into work to cope with his recent divorce, and while that may or may not be true, it's still true that he doesn't have his wife's disapproval anymore. After separation, he also has more free time, and while this could just be his last good season, Brady might stick it out a few more years. All options are on the table for him, and the Bucs definitely won't say no if he asks for another one-year contract. As an older player and a father, that's definitely the safer option to choose for a final high end to his career. There's also the possibility he goes the dangerous route and reunites with the Patriots for his last season. Unlikely, but not entirely impossible. After all, the record for the oldest player in the NFL, which goes to George Blanda, is 48, and Brady has 3 years till then. It's not like there's a maximum age limit, and even if there was, Tom Brady is a legend and would be welcomed as long as he'd like to stay. That's all for today. What do you guys think? Will Brady stay for another few seasons? How do you think the next Bucs match will go? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you give the video a like and go ahead and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Bye for now, and see you in the next one.